everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about a CPAP machine, why I need it, what my thoughts are behind it, and the positives and negatives that I personally have for it. If you are new here, my name is Deeanna and I make mental health and lifestyle videos. This video is more of a lifestyle slash physical health type video, and I'm going to explain exactly what a CPAP machine is, what it stands for, all those different types of things. So let's go ahead and get started.
And trying to remain so strong, I know it's good if I'm wrong. I got it, I gotta go, run.
So first of all, I'm going to answer the question, what is a CPAP machine? So a CPAP machine stands for continuous positive airway pressure. So what is a CPAP machine used for? A CPAP machine is usually used to treat obstructive sleep apnea or OSA, and that is a condition which I'm not going to get into fully in this video, but it is a condition in which the airway gets blocked or obstructed temporarily throughout the night. So this can be caused, and it's mostly caused, by the tongue flopping backwards in a person's sleep, because due to the inability to actually hold their tongue forwards. So therefore the airway gets temporarily blocked, and then that can usually cause, and one of the main symptoms of obstructive sleep apnea is snoring. So how does the CPAP machine help? So a CPAP machine helps by pushing a continuous pressure of air into the person's airway and therefore keeping the tongue out of the way, and it stops the tongue from blocking the airway. This pressure and through the mask is actually determined by the machine itself. So I will show you a quick image of how the CPAP machine works. I'll turn it on and show you what it means. But basically on the screen there is a button, you press the button above it and that turns on the machine. Then the machine will go to a preset pressure. When the machine hits that preset pressure, and it knows it's hit that pressure because it's gone onto the mask, and then it kind of knows the pressure that's being put from the machine through the tubing and into the mask. When it hits that pressure, it will then be constantly assessing as to whether that pressure is enough. So my CPAP machine is set to give me a continuous air pressure of between 4 and 8.9. It's on the lower end of things, but basically it cannot go above 8.9 and it won't go below 4. So when it gets turned on, it will go to 4, and then during the night it will go up and down depending on the air pressure that the machine sort of detects that you need. So now I'm going to move on to my personal positives. So my personal positives for the CPAP machine is that I am feeling a lot more energized throughout the day, and so therefore the second positive I'm going to be talking about is I don't need a nap anymore. Well, most of the time, depending on what time I actually get to sleep. But before I had my CPAP machine, I was sleeping throughout the day. I was, going to bed at the same time as I usually do now, and then I was getting up, and then in a couple of hours I would be exhausted again, and I would need to then go back to bed. And I would be sleeping for a good sort of 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the day, which obviously isn't great. But then people would think, oh, if you're sleeping for 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the day, surely you can't be tired again when it comes to bedtime. Believe you me, I was tired again. So I would be going back to sleep again. Oh, well, if you're sleeping 3 to 4 hours in the middle of the day, surely you don't need to go to bed at 8, 9 o'clock at night. I did. I would go to bed and I would be sleeping, and it felt like I was sleeping more than I wasn't sleeping, and I had no energy. So therefore I'd think, okay, I've got no energy, I need to go back to sleep again. But in actual fact, I would wake up from any nap or any sleep not feeling any more energized than when I actually went to sleep. So there was no point me going to sleep, but staying awake just didn't work either. And my third positive is the fact that I have better concentration, therefore I am able to get a lot more done in the day and be a lot more productive. Yes, I still have my off days and days that I am not productive like any other person, but I feel like having the CPAP machine has definitely brought me onto a more level playing field with people who don't have sleep apnea. So now I'm going to move on to the personal negatives I have. Again, I'm going to only be mentioning my top 3, but there is plenty other negatives that could be mentioned. But as I said, we're just going to do my top 3. So my first one is the fact the mask can be uncomfortable. Because the fact that the mask is putting an air pressure and you're then having the mask being held on, sometimes it can be uncomfortable. I've been using a CPAP machine and obviously wearing the mask now for over a year. And in that time, I have gotten used to wearing the mask. I now find it more uncomfortable to not sleep with my CPAP machine and my mask on because I'm so used to wearing the mask. But I do remember that initially when I first had the CPAP machine, I hated the mask, I hated wearing it, I just did not like wearing it. And that brings me on to my second negative, which is it limits the sleeping positions that you can sleep in. So before I had my CPAP machine, I was a huge stomach sleeper, and to the point that I would sleep on my stomach and face plant the pillow. That was just the way that I slept and was the most comfortable. And even all my friends, especially, like I've mentioned AJ on the channel before, and AJ, like I'd go and visit her and she would like come in when I was sleeping and I'd wake up and she'd be like, "You sleep on your stomach?" And I'd be like, yeah, that is the most comfortable position that I sleep in. And even to this day, she does not understand how I was able to drastically change my sleeping position. Because with a CPAP machine, you cannot sleep on your stomach. And you can't even lay on your stomach with it on. Like I've tried, trust me, and you can't. Just makes things a hell of a lot worse. So with the CPAP machine, you then have to like think, okay, well, what else is comfortable? So I usually will end up sort of sleeping on my back majority of the night. And sometimes I'll sleep on my side, but I think because of my back issues, my laying on my back is actually the most comfortable. So my second negative about the CPAP machine, which obviously isn't a huge negative, but it still impacts my day, is the fact that when I first wake up and when I take the mask off, I will usually have a temporary impression as to where the mask was. So this usually is like lines on my cheeks, almost like when you have a hairband on your wrist and you leave it on too long and then you take it off and you've got like a ring around your wrist. Very similar to that, but it's the impression of the mask. This usually goes away within an hour or so, but it can be a bit off-putting if I'm late for something and I have to rush out the flat and then I've got these marks on my face. So it can be a little bit like on the inconvenient side, but it is something that you can work around quite easily. So that is it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about the CPAP machine, why I need it, and also just learning about some of the limitations and the positives towards actually having a CPAP machine. Of course, I do not recommend not using a CPAP machine if you use it. I recommend using the CPAP machine if you have one, but I am just doing this video for educational purposes and also for people to understand that just because I have a CPAP machine doesn't mean that there's no drawbacks to it. There's always going to be drawbacks to every sort of medical device and or medication, but for me, I've listed my top 3 limitations and all my negatives and my top 3 positives. So as I said, I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall see you in my next one. Bye.
Just like you're young again, no, don't you cry. Just get back up again.